actually getting ready to come to Florida, and I walked down the steps in my backyard, and there was some concrete steps, and my foot hit the bottom one. It was wet, and my feet went straight up, and I went back and did a body slam on my left shoulder, and I was popping Advil and ibuprofen like M&Ms for about 10 weeks. And finally, when I went back home and got back to the doctor, discovered that my left rotator cuff was completely shattered. It was shredded. Every one tendon was completely detached, and 3 of the others were mangled and shredded. It's probably the most pain I ever went through. And the doctor, when we got back home, did an MRI, and he walked out and said, "You got a problem." I said, "This is bad." And he said, "We're going to have to do surgery." So in June, they did surgery, and they completely rebuilt my left shoulder. But for 8 weeks, my left arm was taped to my chest, and I couldn't move it. And that meant for 8 weeks, I couldn't even hold a guitar. I couldn't even pick one up. And I literally, honestly thought I was never going to be able to play again. And the first time I was able to pick up a guitar, my wife handed it to me, and she gingerly sits it just like this. And I had to take my left arm and I had to put it here with my right arm. And when I wanted to move it, I had to move it with my right arm back and forth. And there was a lot of tears, a lot of discouragement, a lot of frustration, and a lot of questioning God. Why did this have to happen to me? You know, I mean, this is my livelihood. This is what I do. And that meant 2.5 months with no income, because, I mean, this is how I make my living. And I had a person that kind of lectured me on some different theology that I don't necessarily quite agree with. But my response to him was, you know, sometimes we get to a point to where we flat don't feel like praying. Anybody ever been to that point? I'll be honest. Where you just didn't feel like praying. And there's where we depend on the prayers of our friends. There's where we depend on the prayers of people like you. And we depend on encouraging words. Pastor Skipper would send me messages on Facebook just to let me know that he was praying for me. And you have no idea what that meant. Because that's what kind of carried us through that. And about the time I was getting ready to get back out on the road, I ended up having chest pains and found out that my right coronary was 80% blocked and had to go back in the hospital and have a stent. And that shut me down for another month. And I remember one night I was sitting at home, and I was watching TV, and I was kind of wallowing in self-pity. None of y'all ever done that, I'm sure. But I was just thinking about how bad off I was, and how bad I had it, and how unfair life was to me. And all of a sudden, I got a phone call that night. It was on a Tuesday night. I got a phone call from a friend of mine down here in Sarasota. His name is Russell. And Russell said, "I just called you to let you know I'm thinking about you, and I've been praying for you. And I know you're having a hard time, but I've been just thinking about you and praying for you, and that I love you. And I'd like to have prayer with you over the phone, if that's okay." And I said, "Absolutely." And we had a talk, and then we had a nice word of prayer. And I hung the phone up, and I sat there, and I cried like a baby. And my wife said, "What in the world is wrong with you?" And I said, "That was Russell." And she went, "Oh." Well, the rest of the story is Russell had just gotten out of the hospital. He had been in the hospital for almost 5 years and was sent home under hospice care. He was sent home to die, but yet he called to encourage me. Now, folks, if you want to get an attitude adjustment from God, you let something like that happen to you, because it's a reality check. It puts you back where you belong. And the rest of my prayers were, "God, forgive me for being such a whiner." And God restored us. You know, I'm still getting my left hand strength back, but we're excited now to be back out in the ministry. And I know the devil don't want us out here. 3 weeks ago, we saw 5 teenagers saved in one of our services. And the devil don't like that. He don't want that kind of stuff. He don't want us winning souls. He don't want you witnessing to people. He don't want us sharing the good news about God's love and about his faithfulness. He wants us to be in our little complacent shell. He wants us to be where We just be real quiet and we just kind of roll along and we whine and cry and talk about how bad things are. Well, my mission and my ministry now is just hopefully to remind you to start recognizing and seeing the simple little good things that God does for us on a daily basis that 90% of the time zip right over our heads and we don't recognize it because we're programmed to see the bad junk and not the good junk. But I came here this morning to tell you that God is faithful and that he still loves us and he's still in charge and that he will not let you down. Amen? I want to do this. We need him. How many of you know we need him? We think we can make it on our own, but folks, I got some news for you. You can't. We need him. This song is called People Need the Lord.